There was an old man in our community, a pike carrier named Thomas Many Horses, who used to say that the most important question you can ask about any relationship is this: who shows up on a plain Tuesday? Not when you are celebrating, not when you are in need. On an ordinary Tuesday, when there is nothing particular happening, nothing being asked for, nothing being given, who shows up then? Because the people who are truly with you will find their way to your door on an ordinary Tuesday. The people who are only using you seem unable to find it at all. Tonight, I want to share 5 quiet signs the elders recognized. 5 ways of knowing when someone is drawing from your well without ever helping to fill it. I have sat with this teaching for a long time, and I want to say something before we go further so that what follows lands the right way. In many Native traditions, there is a strong and beautiful teaching about generosity. The elders believed deeply in giving, in sharing, in holding the door open for those who needed it. That teaching still stands, and nothing I say tonight should make you doubt it. The problem we are looking at is not generosity. Generosity is like a good river. It flows out and it is renewed. What we are looking at tonight is a drain, a person who has quietly turned your generosity into a one-way road, who accepts your giving as though it were simply the natural order of things, and who offers back only enough to keep you giving. The old ones had a name for this kind of person. They called them the empty-handed borrowers, and they had 5 ways of knowing them. Now, I want to be careful here, and I want to be fair. This teaching is not about filling you with suspicion toward every person you know. Wisdom is not the same as paranoia, and the elders never confused the two. This is about seeing clearly. And the elders believed that clear sight was one of the most important gifts you could give yourself, especially in the later years of your life. Because your time and your energy and your peace of mind are not things you can afford to waste. You have worked too hard and lived too long to spend what remains on people who have quietly decided that you exist for their use. The first sign is the simplest, though it rarely feels simple when you are living inside of it. It sounds obvious when you say it plainly. Of course, a person who only comes to you when they need something is not a real friend. But the difficulty is that you do not notice it at first, because people have reasons. They call when they are struggling because they trust you. They come around when they need help because you are capable and kind. These are not bad things in themselves. The question is the direction, not whether they come when they need something, but whether they also come when they do not need anything, whether they call just to hear how you are, whether they show up without asking for anything, whether they think about you at all when their life is going smoothly and your help is not required. Elder Thomas used to call this the harvest test. He would say, when a man's corn is growing well, who does he think about? When the corn fails and the need is sharp, who does he call? If the answer to both questions is the same person, that is a real relationship. If a different name comes up each time, pay close attention to that pattern. I knew a woman who had been quietly carrying a sister-in-law for many years. Every few months, without fail, there would be a call, a crisis, a bill that needed paying, a favor that could not wait. And this woman gave every time because that is the kind of person she was. But when I asked her the last time her sister-in-law had called simply to say hello, with nothing attached, she had to think about it for a long while. And then she said quietly that she could not remember. I asked when was the last time her sister-in-law had asked how she was doing and then stayed on the line long enough to hear the real answer. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said she did not think that had happened in years. She had been answering a certain kind of call for so long that she had stopped noticing there was only ever the one kind. The elders would say, you are allowed to help people who only call when they need something. Generosity does not require a receipt. But you are also allowed to see what is true, And what is true is this: a person who calls you only at the bottom is not calling because they love you. They are calling because you are useful. And useful is not the same as loved. If you confuse the two, you will keep giving to someone who has no intention of giving back, and you will do it in the name of love, and that is a lonelier kind of giving than most people admit. Watch who comes around on ordinary days. If the only news you get is always a problem looking for a hand, that is not a friendship. It is a transaction dressed up in familiar clothes. I want to pause here and say something that took me a long time to understand myself. Noticing this pattern does not make you ungrateful for the times you were able to help. It does not cancel out the genuine good you did. All of that still stands. What it does is give you information going forward. You can help with clear eyes instead of clouded ones. You can give from a place of choice rather than obligation or guilt. The elders said that a gift given freely is medicine. A gift given under pressure is not a gift. It is a tax. And no one should spend their life paying taxes to people who chose them for that purpose. The second sign is a little harder to see because it looks like admiration at first. The people who are quietly using you will celebrate your strength, your capability, your steady, reliable presence in their life. They will speak highly of you to others. They will tell you how strong you are, how smart, how much they depend on you. And you enjoy this, as most of us do. But then a hard season comes, an illness, a loss, a time when the capable, strong person you have always been is neither capable nor strong for a while. And watch what happens then. The friend who spent years telling you how admirable you are suddenly becomes difficult to reach. Suddenly they are busy. Suddenly they have their own things. And slowly it becomes clear that what they loved was not you. What they loved was the version of you that could do things for them. The version who needed help in return did not interest them at all. Thomas Many Horses used to call this the winter tree test. He would say, "You can tell who loves a tree by who stays under it when the branches are bare. Anyone can appreciate a tree in summer. That is easy. A summer tree is beautiful and it offers shade and it gives fruit. The one who truly loves the tree will also stand near it in winter when it has nothing to offer and will say quietly, 'It is still a good tree. It has always been a good tree. I am glad it is here.' If the people around you tend to grow scarce whenever you are going through something hard, if they are wonderful and present when you are doing well and somehow unavailable when you are not, that is the second sign. And I want to say, gently, that this is not always cause for anger. Some people are simply not built for being near suffering. Not everyone has been taught how to witness struggle. But the ones who can only want your strength, who cannot tolerate being near your weakness, are showing you something real and important about the level of the relationship. Take note of it. You deserve someone who will stand near the bare winter tree. The third sign is one that quietly reveals the nature of the arrangement. By resources, I mean anything you have that can be given. Your money, your time, your connections, your skills, your space. Whatever it is that you have in abundance, the empty-handed borrower will know the count of it with remarkable precision. They will know when you got a little extra. They will know when things are good for you. They will know how much you can probably spare, and they will ask for just enough to stay within what you are likely to give. But ask them what keeps you awake at night. Ask them what you most want from the years you have left. Ask them what makes you feel most alive, or most afraid, or most yourself. Pause and watch what happens. Usually, not much happens, because that kind of knowing takes genuine interest, and genuine interest is the one thing they have not invested in you. The Lakota have a saying I have always loved. They say a person who knows the size of your pot, but not the name of your longing, is a guest, not a family. A guest uses the pot. Family knows the longing. There is nothing wrong with having guests in your life. We need guests, but you do not give a guest everything you have. You do not arrange your whole life around making sure the guest is comfortable. I want to tell you about a man I knew who had done reasonably well in his working years. By the time he reached his late 60s, he had a comfortable house, a small amount of savings, and a truck in good repair. And over time, he began to notice something. People who had not been in his life for years started appearing again. Not because he had changed, not because of anything he had done. They had simply heard that things were going well for him, and they had come to see if his going well might extend in their direction. And they knew, almost immediately, the details: the comfortable house, the savings, the truck. But they did not know that his wife had left him 12 years before and that the house was very quiet. They did not know that he had not slept well in months. They knew the number of what he had, but not the weight of his life. And he told me that was the moment he finally understood. He said, "They do not see me. They see what I have. And I am not the same thing as what I have. If the people in your life know exactly what you can give but very little about who you are, the third sign is present. They are showing you the level at which they are engaged with you. That is useful information. You can decide what to do with it." Here is one more thought on this before we move on, because I have seen people dismiss this sign too quickly. They say, "Well, I have never told them those personal things, so of course they do not know." And that is fair. Some people are private. Some people take time to open. But I am talking about a different situation. I am talking about the times when you did tell them, when you opened a door and they did not walk through it, when you mentioned something that mattered and they looked for a way back to what they needed from you. Those moments count. And if you have had many of them, they count together. The fourth sign is one that can make a good-hearted person feel ashamed of themselves for noticing, and that is exactly what makes it so effective. The people who are quietly using you have often mastered the art of the story in which they are the victim. Every gathering, every phone call, every visit seems to circle back to their suffering, their difficult life, the people who have wronged them, the circumstances that keep beating them down. And the story is always fresh, always urgent, always just enough to keep your sympathy engaged and your generosity on its feet. The old ones called this the web of sighs because it is a thing that catches people who lead with their hearts. And let me say something important here, so this sign does not become a weapon against the genuinely suffering. Real pain deserves real hearing. A person in genuine need is not using you by asking for your compassion. Life is hard, and good people fall on hard times, and there is no shame in needing. The difference is in the pattern. A person in genuine pain wants to be helped up. They accept your hand and they stand, and over time things improve because your help made a difference. A person who has made suffering into their permanent address is not interested in being helped up because if they stand, the tool loses its power. So watch what happens when their situation improves. Is there relief? Or is there, almost immediately, a new difficulty, a new crisis, a new reason why things are still very hard and more is still needed? Elder Thomas had a name for this. He called it the borrower's shield. He said some people have learned that the world gives more to those who appear to suffer, so they have quietly made suffering into their way of moving through the world. Not because they are evil, usually because somewhere along the way it worked. It got them something they needed, and now it is their way, and they may not even fully understand it themselves. That does not make you responsible for their pattern. It makes you responsible for recognizing it. A grandmother I knew told me once that she had given 20 years of her life to a daughter-in-law who lived in a permanent state of emergency, always a crisis, always a need. The grandmother gave and gave because her heart was good and the need always seemed real and present. And then one day, the daughter-in-law came into a small inheritance, enough to quiet several of the ongoing emergencies, and the grandmother watched, expecting to see relief. But within 6 months, every coin was gone, and the same emergencies had returned, wearing new faces. That was the day she understood. She said, "I thought all this time that I was helping her climb out of the hole. I had not seen that she needed the hole. She was not climbing. I was giving her better furniture for it." If you find yourself always hearing the hard story, always giving because the situation is dire, but the situation is never anything but dire regardless of what you give, the fourth sign is there. The fifth sign is the one that can sting the most because it turns your own conscience against you. The people who are quietly using you have learned, whether they know it consciously or not, that the most dangerous thing for them is your clarity. If you see clearly, you will stop. So what they need is for you not to see clearly, and the easiest way to achieve that is to make you doubt your own eyes. It works like this. A generous person, a truly kind and good-hearted person, is exactly the kind of person who will immediately question themselves when they begin to notice an imbalance. They will think, "Am I being cold? Am I being uncharitable? Do I not have enough? Have I forgotten what it means to need someone?" These are the questions that rise up in a good heart. And the empty-handed borrower, whether they understand it or not, has learned to exploit exactly that quality. They know that you will always second-guess yourself before you second-guess the pattern. So when you pull back a little, when you hesitate, when you begin to name what you have been quietly feeling, suddenly the language shifts. Suddenly you are being selfish. Suddenly you have changed for the worse. Suddenly you do not care about them the way you used to. And the good-hearted person, because they are good-hearted, is flooded with doubt. Maybe I am being selfish. Maybe I am too suspicious. Maybe I am the problem here. And they give again. Thomas Many Horses had a very clear teaching about this. He said, "A person who calls your wisdom selfishness is not interested in your wisdom. They are interested in your resources. And a person who calls your discernment cruelty does not want to be seen clearly. A healthy relationship does not require you to give beyond your means and then feel ashamed for having means at all." The elders were clear on this point. Seeing clearly is not the same as being cold. Setting a limit is not the same as closing your heart. Recognizing a pattern is not the same as condemning a person. You can see exactly what is happening and understand it with compassion and make a wise decision about what you will and will not continue to offer, all without a drop of hatred in your chest. That is not coldness. That is dignity. And the old ones believed that a person who has walked the first half of their life in generosity has earned the right, in the second half, to spend themselves wisely. If you feel guilty for noticing, if the moment you begin to name what you see, someone finds a way to make you the villain of the story, the fifth sign is present. And I want to say to you plainly, the way the elders would have said it, you are not wrong for seeing. You are not selfish for wanting to give where the giving is welcomed and returned. You are not a failure of generosity because you noticed that someone was taking without offering back. You are someone who sees clearly, and clear sight is a gift, not a sin. I have given you 5 signs tonight, but I want to leave you with something more, because the elders would not have ended here. The empty-handed borrowers in your life are people. Most of them learned what they learned in hard ways, from people who used them first. Compassion is still the right response. I am not asking you to harden your heart. What I am asking you to do is something the elders considered even more important than giving, and that is lasting. Compassion without any limit is not compassion. It is exhaustion wearing the face of generosity, and a worn out giver is not much good to anyone, including themselves. The elders wanted the generous people, the warm hearted people, to still be standing and giving and full of life 20 years from now. And the only way that happens is if they learn to give from a full well, not from an empty one. Water a garden, rest in the shade, fill the well back up. Give from what flows over, not from what you cannot spare. You deserve, at every age, to be in the company of people who come looking for you on ordinary Tuesdays. People who know your longing as well as your resources. People who stand near the bare winter tree and still say, "That is a good tree." There are those people in the world. And I want you to not let the empty-handed borrowers consume all of the time you could be spending finding them or being with the ones you already have. That time is yours. Spend it well. I want to leave you with one last thing the old ones knew about this. They said that the clearest sign of a life well lived is not how much you gave, but whether the people you gave to were worth the giving. And that is not a cruel calculation. It is the opposite. It is the recognition that your care has value, that your time has value, that your peace of mind has value, not because you are more important than others, but because you are not less important than others. The elders never taught their people to make themselves small so that everyone else could feel comfortable. They taught their people to carry themselves with dignity and to choose their company accordingly. So, 5 signs. Watch who comes on ordinary Tuesdays. Watch who stays near the bare winter tree. Watch who knows your longing and not just your pot. Watch who cannot seem to climb out of the hole no matter how much you give. And watch who makes you feel guilty for seeing what you see. 5 signs. And one truth underneath all of them: you have earned the right, by living long and giving much, to spend the rest of your life in company that sees you, all of you, not just what you have to offer. Good night, friends. I will keep the fire.